doing my job, trying to remind all the audience to still stay awake. I know this is the last session, it's very difficult. For you who are still sleepy, coffee is served at the back. Please. So, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, good afternoon, and those viewing online, good morning, good evening, buenos dias, and buenas noches. Thank you again for still being in this hall at this last session. And like what the MC say, I believe this is the highlight of the ISW 2024, which is the panel discussion. The title of this panel discussion is aptly titled The Readiness of Smallholders for the Implementation of EUDR. So, for this morning, you have heard various speakers from the government sector, relevant government bodies, industry players, and smallholders discussing on subject matter with the theme enhancing productivity of smallholders through technological advancement. For this panel session, this evening, we have 6 distinguished panelists from different sectors of the industry to discuss on our smallholders' readiness for the implementation of EUDR. However, this discussion will extend beyond that and shall include potential scenarios, including changes in the trade and supply configuration, as well as concern of smallholders and the government of producing countries' efforts to facilitate and assist them. So the panelists for this session is the best we can bring on. They are first Dr. Muzalifah Mahmud, dipersilakan Ibu. Then we have Dr. Rizal Afandi Luqman, our Secretary General. For this panel discussion, followed by another 15 minutes for Q&A. But if you find it interesting, we will extend it longer, okay? So I've set the questions for all these panelists here. They do not know these questions, but I reckon they are expert in that field and ready to answer this question. So the first question, go to the roses among the thorns. Ibu, bos, Ibu. So the question is, we applaud the efforts taken by the Indonesian government, namely the Agriculture Ministry as well as the CMEA, to establish the National Dashboard. The National Dashboard is no easy task. The question is, would they be ready, and would all, especially the smallholders, registration be completed by end of this year? So, Ibu.
It's not a difficult question, but it's not easy to answer. Pak Dato, ladies and gentlemen, participants. We are as a government, after we have a joint task force facilitated by CPOPC, we have in the first joint task force, we already present to the EU, and also we are for Indonesia delegate and Malaysia delegate about our initiative to create a new platform to accommodate all the data and information that already exists in Indonesia. In this time, at the first time in the joint task force, we call clearinghouse. And after we have meeting some and many stakeholders, finally we thought that maybe the title is much better if we put as a national dashboard. This national dashboard initiate by all the delegate, not only from the government. We working together with the private sector, business, the Pak Fadil friends, and also from NGO and association. We thought that it's good to have all the data information that what we have now. We didn't say that we will start from zero, but we start from maybe 50 or 50% or 30%, because all the data information actually we have already in many provider like smallholder industry have their own data about all the first we initiate to provide for the EUDR, but finally this is not only for EUDR. All the consumer country will release a new regulation on the commodity trade in the global. So we would like to asking all our from private sector who has the data information about their commodity, who trade with which already trade to the global market, from the industry, from the NGO, and also association, with assurance that they have all that data, because they have already the data information about uh, all the smallholders which already they increase their capacity, like from ISPO especially. We know that all the requirement of the EUDR is just a small part of the Indonesia sustainable palm oil. It's beyond of the sustainability manner for the palm oil. So we, through those data information, we accommodate in this dashboard and will validate by the Ministry of Agriculture. Actually, Pak Fauzan already, sees as the head of the secretariat for the national dashboard team. So if our colleagues here for smallholder in Indonesia would like to know more keen about this national dashboard, please go to Pak Fauzan. Pak Fauzan, would you like to stand up here? You are the head of the secretariat of the national dashboard. He's handsome ya Pak ya, and very young, but has already not single anymore. We actually for this platform about 80% is ready, and we are now working with the piloting. We have around 13 parties who will participate, not only for palm oil, also for other commodity. We prioritize for all the commodity who trade to the who were involved in the EUDR, cocoa, coffee, rubber, wood. Wood already have their own platform with the traceability that we can check from since 2012. So we follow what SVLK, we call SVLK for wood. We follow what their system, and then we copy it, working together with all our stakeholder. And for this national dashboard, we have cooperation ya Pak Fauzan with PTSI, Surveyor Indonesia, which already have cooperation with the Ministry of Agriculture to validate all the data information which already in all our stakeholders nowadays. About 80%, our colleagues say 80% of the platform itself is finished already, but for smallholders data and information, we are now being identified. For the we talk with all our association and also many institution platform who already give a talk to us, give information, talk about coffee. They say we have all the information about the coffee in Indonesia, and we can we can work in together with our national dashboard. And now they have already NDA, non-disclosure agreement. So all the data information still belongs to all the industry, all provider who are working together with national dashboard operated by PTSI, Surveyor Indonesia. And if you have the data information, please just talk with PTSI ya, SO operator ya Pak Pozan ya. Give me information if I made mistakes. And then after you have a talk, and then if you say, I pay it's cost very expensive for this data information. I don't want to share. No, you don't have to, but share to the dashboard, and we can guarantee to them that it's belongs to them and it's essential ya Pak ya. This is we cannot share to others without permission from them.
Okay.
Because the owner of the data is still there, but national dashboard will validate all the data information itself, and then through this national dashboard will go to Indonesia single window, and we have the regulation that to trade to the global market, Indonesia national single window, and go through to INATRADE also from Ministry of Trade. So all this system will link with our national dashboard to go to the competent authority or to go to buyers all over the world. So whatever, but in our system, our basic data information based on our own regulation, including the map that we utilize to identify all the smallholder, to make a polygon based on our map, Indonesian map, government Indonesian map. So if we want to sell to the EU, just to overlay with the map of the EU. So don't worry, we still negotiate with EU that our map, we can, we can compare, and what is the gap between our map and EU map, we can communicate maybe through joint task force. That's what we would like to have more keen communication in very technically talk about map definition and many others. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, boss. I think this is a noble effort done by the Indonesian government. And I think all smallholders in Indonesia should support this effort. And we have told EU that the producing country, especially Malaysia and Indonesia, is very serious towards improving our sustainability credential. And this is what we have shown them, that what we have done. And like in Malaysia, we have our MSPO, our e-tray system. So this is what Sipoxi is trying to tell the EU, that please appreciate and recognize our effort. But for smallholders, it's important for you, for both countries, to support this national government efforts. Thank you, boss. Next question to my boss, Pak Rizal. Sipoxi was instrumental in the setting up of the joint task force, as well as facilitating the meetings since a year ago. one of our requests was for the deferment of its implementation due to the lack of preparedness and readiness on the part of the smallholders all over the world. Would EU agree to this request, Pak Rizal?
Thank you, Dato. I think the EU right now is in the demissioner because I think just concluded the election last weekend, and the outcome, I think as predicted, the Green Party lost the power, although it's still there, some, but I think since last year, since the chair of the Green Deal, Frans Timmermans, if you remember, he was stepped down as the EU commissioner who was initiated for the Green Deal program, which is basically is addressing on the climate change issue. And also the outcome just the election recently, they lost 20 seats in the parliament. So considering the process that will take place, the announcement of the final parliament member will be in July. And then the appointment for the president of the European Commission will be done sometimes in September. And then the member of commissioner will be appointed sometimes in October and November. So given this timeline, I don't think that the European Commission at the moment cannot make any political decision, which is revising some of the EU stipulation, including the stipulation on the smallholders in the producing countries. This is really very strong argument why we were requesting to have some additional time, because under the EUDR stipulation, the EU SMEs, small, medium, and enterprises, has been given additional 6 months, not applying the regulation by the beginning of January, instead in June next year, meaning that 6 months additional longer. And we were requesting to have additional timeline for the smallholders in the producing country simply with the same reason. Why they are giving the SMEs timeline much longer? The same argument we also applies that smallholders in the producing countries would have the similar situation in which they need more time in preparing compared to the industry, compared to the big boys. So they cannot, during the task force meeting, the European Commission side took note the concern, the address, but they cannot make any political decision, as I said, because they are just about to have the European Member of Parliament election. And if it is changing the EUDR stipulation, then they need to go to the political process. So this is also about the whether the EUDR will be implemented on time. That's also a big question. So just let's see. But what Ibu Musdalifah has been stating earlier about the readiness of Indonesia, and I also observed the readiness of Malaysia from Ibu Nur presentation earlier for the traceability in Malaysia, Indonesia. I think the producing country in this regard, Indonesia and Malaysia, much more ready than in European Commission itself. I think that's one note. The second note, I think it is very important just to accelerate the effort that has been made in the respective countries, not for the sake of the current EUDR regulation, but we are preparing for the future regulation. So once the smallholders getting capable, have a more also networking as just mentioned a minute ago on the needs to have the global alliance for the smallholders. I think that is very good movement because you can starting and create more alliance because in many other producing countries, the smallholders are really play an important big role compared to the industry. Like in some Latin America, almost 70–80%, and the African countries as well could be like 90% contributed by the smallholders. So I think the interest of the smallholders will be at the forefront of any negotiation at the task force, as well as also becoming the concern of the civil society all over the world. So like one of the Indonesia ambassadors during the interview with the DW media mentioned that the UDR killing the smallholders simply because the smallholders need more time and also still to be included in the supply chains. So that's very, very important. And today's effort by the support from all participants, I think is really tremendous and need to be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Farizal. I think be rest assured that CIPOC will always and will continue fighting for the smallholders. The next question to Encik Sahari. So much has been talked about MSPO 2.0. And Malaysia has achieved a lot of success, especially in its certification, with nearly 98% certified, and more important, 85 of Malaysian smallholders has been certified with MSPO. What attribute to this success, especially in convincing smallholders to be certified?
Okay, first and foremost, I think the smallholders should actually be thankful to the government initiative that was that made the certification mandatory. Yeah, somewhere 2020, it was made mandatory, and that all the smallholders are actually required to be certified. Okay, in this instance, what we did actually, the government of Malaysia had actually subsidized the certification cost, yeah, of which this allow basically the smallholders to be not to be burdened by the cost of certification itself. It would have been costly to the smallholders, but it was actually borne by the government. And then there are some also other initiatives that they were given by the government in the context of providing PPEs, personal protection equipment. Okay, that's number one, of which we have made it mandatory by the government of Malaysia. Secondly, moving forward, one of our new clauses and the new version of MSPO 2530, under one of the principles is that we actually focus on smallholders. I think we are basically the first in the world that really look at smallholders function. Okay, for this instance, when we look at smallholders, what we really look at is that we look at giving some guidelines to the smallholders on the best practices of the good agriculture practices. Secondly, the respect to the environment. Thirdly, compliance to the laws and regulations required by MPOB. And then fourthly, I think the social aspect of what is needed by the smallholders towards the plantation industry. Thirdly, what makes the key attributes to the successful of implementation of to the smallholders is that there is a monitoring mechanism done by MPOB itself. Yeah. Okay, MPOB has actually created a special sustainable palm oil cluster. Yeah, we currently have about 148 clusters, ranging from 3,000 to 8,000 hectares per smallholder. So what we normally do is for MPOB, they will assign one advisory officer who shall be looking after all the smallholders operations. I think with these 3 points that I already put, I think that makes our smallholders in a way successful in the implementation of MSPO. Secondly, what we have, I think we are also ready. We are also ready for our EUDR implementation.
Okay, thank you. One of the things which Sipoxy is fighting for the smallholders is the recognition, or if not recognition, acceptance of our ISPO and MSPO. If they do not want to recognize, it's okay, but they accept it, okay? So in that context, Pak Jono, the next question is for you. ISPO is made mandatory by the Indonesian government in 2025. But today, the take-up rate is still very low. What does it take to convince the smallholders in Indonesia to be ISPO certified?
Okay, thank you so much, Dato. The bridging was wonderful. Good job. Okay, in terms of the ISPO, yeah, the truth is the achievement of ISPO in Indonesia is just very low. I don't want to say the number of percentage, but we know already the numbers is quite low. And first, if we're talking about smallholders, when we have a discussion with smallholders across Indonesia, from Sumatra to Papua Island, the one thing that we encourage the smallholders is that first one, the mindset. The mindset for them is that to have a sustainable certification, it is paramount nowadays. Nothing more, nothing less. That's the mindset number one. The second one is that on how the smallholders would like to have a sustainable certification. And this comes the challenge. The challenge is that the regulations of the forestry in Indonesia, there are some issues there that the smallholders could not get the ISPO, and also regarding the seed. The seed is also becoming one of the biggest problem for smallholders to achieve ISPO, Dato, because the smallholders of Indonesia who plant their plantation before 2010, they did not have the certification of their seed. They didn't know what is the name of the seed that they planted. So, but in ISPO, it should be there must be a proof that, for instance, like smallholders from this area, you planted this using this seed. There is a certification in that. But for smallholders in Indonesia who planted less before 2010, more than 50% of the smallholders in Indonesia, they didn't have this proof of seed. Those are the two biggest problems for the Indonesian smallholders. So what we hope is that the first one, the very most important thing, even though up until this point they still couldn't get the sustainable certification, at least their mindset. And the third one is that what we learned from our friend from Malaysia is that the mindset is already there, the regulation is already there, the seed is already there. The fourth one is the cost. The cost of getting the certification of ISPO in Indonesia is quite costly. Even though Indonesia and Malaysia are the same, we don't have the premium price. However, in Malaysia, what we understand is that the cost is none for the smallholders, even from the starting point for the preparation of the administration, for the auditing, up until getting the certification. It all bear by the government of the Malaysia. So maybe this also what we could learn and we could also implement to Indonesia, because it is very hard. As I mentioned before, the price of fertilizer is getting higher and higher. And we ask the smallholders, let's have a ISPO, because ISPO is very important. one question is very specific and very direct that they ask. What is the benefit to us? And we couldn't give a good answer to them. Would us get a higher price? I'm sorry, no, there is no premium price. So is it subsidized on to getting the ISPO? No, you need to pay by yourself. So those kind of things that is they motivated the smallholders to getting the ISPO. So us as the smallholders, those things, if we, I believe that there is a Bumus also here. Bumus, this is like a Wonder Woman of palm oil in Indonesia. She has done so much for smallholders in Indonesia. And we're glad that we have Bumus and also especially Pak Rizal. Give applause to our seniors. So those are the things that the challenges for smallholders to getting the ISPO. If we conquer these challenges, I believe it's very easy for smallholders to get the ISPO certification because we already put the mindset on sustainability for the smallholders in Indonesia. That's it, Dato'.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Jono. I know Pak Indrajat might not fully agree with you, but we discuss it offline. This. My next question is to Tuan Haji Azmi. Tuan Haji, you got the easiest question. As the National Association of Smallholders President and as a smallholder, what are your wish lists to the government of Malaysia?
Which list to become?
Wish list.
You mean in terms of MSPO?
No, any,
And
as a grower. What do
Okay,
you want from the government?
yeah, I've been asking. Thank you, Dato'. I've been asking Dato' what is the question because orang mati pun tahu jawab soalan apa soalan. That's why I tanya dia apa soalannya. But he don't want to give it to me. But today the part is my wish list. You see, when you talk about are you ready, I'm not. My wish list. Are you happy? You're not ready. If we are happy, we are ready, correct? But are we happy? That's the question. When Pak Jono mentioned about benefit, even though Malaysia was given a lot of benefit in terms of assistance from the government, from day one when you want to be certified, for example, we are given a free auditing fee. We were given all the equipment, PPA equipment, and we were given, in fact, of keeping our herbicide, everything. I mean, in fact, we can thankful to our government. But at the end of the day, you see, at the end of the day, the locals, I mean, the country itself, nation itself, the smallholders must show the benefit physically. But when we talk about price, it's not our control price. But in terms of cost of production, it's our control. So my wish is that we can reduce the cost. But whatever means that we can. For example, in Malaysia, if one day 100% of the smallholders have been certified, and mind you, smallholders in Malaysia had been under mandatory rule start from day one. When you are born in the industry, you are being licensed and you are start the mandatory rules and everything. So we have no problem on mandatory of MSPO. But the problem is that how they are going to enforce all the principle and element so that we can get the best of MSPO impact. For example, one that I can mention to you, my wish list is that can we get a very premium quality of FFB based on MSPO? I can call it certified FFB. That's my wish list. We have certified MSPO, but we don't have certified FFB. So if there is a certified FFB, let's say I am the producer, I got 7 acres of land, my field was certified FFB, and I can get premium price from the mill that process my crops. Why? Because I have a good quality crop, and they are supposed to get high OER. And Malaysia, the price of FFB is determined by the quality. But in this case, there is no motivation on producing quality crop and somebody, my neighbor, are not producing good crop, I produce good, there is no motivation for me to be an MSPO. So this is my wish, to get a homogeneous crop whereby everybody produce quality crop based on MSPO, and we are going to have local premium price, not international. This should be not in Malaysia, in everywhere. So we must have MSPO certified FFB. We have to start it today. Not CPO, certified FFB, either in Malaysia, in Papua New Guinea, in everywhere in all the CPOC country. And we can tell the world that we have, at the first start of our market at FFB, we are certified already. We have produced a quality crop, we can feed your nation. Because for your information, the European, their DNA is palm oil. Because previously, 100 years ago, they have been consuming palm oil forever. So their DNA, they know palm oil is good. But because of market competition, they are anti-palm oil. So my only wish, Mr. MSO can produce a quality crop, give a good OER and good price locally. Even though price going up and down, but the premium of FFB can good price because OER increase, productive increase. That is my wish. Only one wish. Only.
Okay, thank you. I think you got the next 2 days, Haji Sari with you here. Please convince him the next 2 days. Okay, thank you, Haji Azmi. I've got one question to my good friend, Capson. Capson called me his good friend, but I want him to be my best friend. The only way to be my best friend is for PNG to be a CPOC full member. Okay? So my question to Mr. Capson, not many of us know about PNG smallholders. Can you share a little bit on how government of PNG facilitate and assist the smallholders there?
Thank you, Chair. In PNG, we have, as I always say, we have 21,000 smallholders, owning around about 66,000 hectares of palm oil. In total, we own around about 250,000 hectares of planted palm oil. Now, we have planted palm oil since 1968, and the 21,000 smallholders have been producing certified palm oil since then up until now. So in terms of EUDR regulations, we have no issues. Basically because what the government did was the government started a program in 1968 through a World Bank funded program under poverty alleviation through a British company. The government did a nucleus estate system where you have a mill in the middle with a 10, 20,000 hectares surrounded by small oil. And we continue to feed on that. Our challenge is the growth. When the palm oil was introduced, the government decided to have the private sector to control the industry. And so the government has got very less or little control over the industry. That's why we are doing very well. We have an institution called the Oil Palm Industry Corporation, which was enacted through legislation in 1992, which I am the head, which basically is providing extension service without the need to regulate the industry. So it's basically run so well. We have all our data systems very well managed. We provide extension service jointly with the milling company. The largest milling company in our country is Simdabi. Simdabi has taken over from a British company, some 10 years ago. But they have brought the Malaysian, Indonesian expertise, and we are progressing well. Our challenge, or my challenge in the country, is a social issue created by the oil palm development that took place some 50 years ago. We have third, fourth generation families living in those smallholder plots of 4, 5 families now. And so they can't be able to fit in the 6-hectare plot or the 2-hectare plot. So Simdabi is actually having a bit of challenge trying to manage these issues out in our country. And now that we have a oil palm minister to it, we are also, with the minister, we are also trying to address issues on the law and order problems. So far as EUDR regulation is coming into force, for PNG, as I've said, we don't have an issue. Our country is the 3rd largest rainforest host country in the world. Now, the entire 48 million hectares of our land is owned by tribal village people, clans and tribes. The government does not own it. Now, the people have seen that oil palm is the way to go, and now they want to plant palm oil with prices of goods and services going up and a lot of economic issues faced by communities. And so the government has taken on board. And at the time, we are trying to grow the industry in terms of smallholders. We got this bombshell now being put on us. So it's a challenge. And last time I've made a point in our meeting in KL that for a country like PNG, it's going to be a challenge for the EUDR regulations to be deployed. You cannot save the forest in Papua New Guinea because 90% of the population depends on subsistence farming. So they own the land. And if you don't get them down onto a sustainable economic activity, they're all going to go. And 13 million people are cultivating 2 hectares of the 13 million rainforest we have there. In 10 years, it's gone. And these are some of the messages that we need to give to EU through our joint task force. And I would invite our joint task force to come into my country and see the potential risks of destroying that rainforest that we have on the other side. I think that's what I can be able to.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain. The next joint task force meeting is in September. If PNG is a member by September, I will invite you to join us. Okay?
Thanks.
Our next question is back to what Pak Jono called Indonesia's Wonder Woman, right? Ibu Bos, Indonesia production and yield, especially among smallholders, has stagnated and even declining. One of the reasons are the aging palms. What are the government efforts to curtail the decline and increase yield?
From the government, actually, we have already since 2016, we already doing replanting to increase the productivity of our smallholders because we realize since Pak Jono also already mentioned about how our smallholders develop they grow their plantation of palm oils more than 25 years ago and utilize very common, they don't know, the grade of their seeds. So the productivity until now for our smallholder maybe only about 2.5 to 3. So in this term, that's why we propose that all the smallholder who has the plantation already aging around 2.6 million hectare. Actually, we predict our smallholder plantation already aging. So that's why we release the actual big program to replanting. Every year, our target is 180,000 hectares.
Is it funded by the government?
Funded by Palm Oil Board. So in this Palm Oil Fund, Palm Oil Fund Board, ya Pak ya, in English, BPDP, we apa nih, the finance is coming from the exporter. So we say that this fund from the industry go to industry. So from palm oil to go to palm oil. From all the export, we have the levy. The levy, we take levy from their export and then go directly to the palm oil fund board. So from this fund, we hope that we can keep sustain our palm oil plantation, palm oil production in the country. We realize the declining of the production is because mostly our palm oil tree already aging, and some of them damaged also. We have this program as a priority program, strategic program for our country, led by the Ministry of Agriculture. It's not easy to persuade our smallholder to cut their tree because they are rely on their plantation. They have 3 hectares. Their income depend on this plantation. Even the productivity very low. They thought it's much better if we have small amount of money than we cut in 3 years. They don't think that they can earn some money for their livelihood. That's why we trying to improve our program. What can we do to ensure our smallholder that they can still have an income while they do replanting, like we how to say mixed farming ya Pak ya, to asking them to grow cash crop and also financed by the palm oil with BPDP, we call BPDP, and also we persuade all our palm. Actually, we have loan. We prepare loan after they have they finish their grant from palm oil board. We prepare loan credit usaha rakyat ya, KUR, and they have apa collateral, yeah, they can do in collateral, and also in five years they don't have to pay because we give time for them to finish their plantation after already harvest and they get income. They can pay for all the credit. 4 years they don't have to pay because they are being developed there. So that I think those facilitate, it still need interval from the government because our smallholder don't have any courage yet to enter to the bank. And through this workshop, I hope in the next term, from CPOPC also can propose how they can take the banking system to do to improve their plantation, to go to the KUR and anything, because that is until now, even we prepare everything facilitate to our smallholders, their capacity to go to the KUR, to the bankers is still not easy for them. Even the deputy for bankers and coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs go directly to go to the farmers. So why? Still, it's not easy. That's why we still need to improve our policy to make available all of our program from the government to the smallholders can fulfill, and we can meet all the, and also the requirement for the replanting, Pak Fauzan ya. You have already released the new regulation to make it more simple, more simple. Only the basic needs we asking from the smallholder. So we hope Pak Jono and all smallholders ya, Pak Jono ya, maybe we can communicate how to persuade our smallholder to do replanting, to increase the productivity, to increase the income, and also to provide high productivity or high product to the global market.
Thank you. I think this is a universal problem faced by all producing countries, smallholders. We've got another 2 minutes left. I will ask this last question before we open to the floor to Pak Rizal. Pak Rizal, CIPOCSI has also initiated visits to EU member countries to meet with the competent authorities to know their preparations on the implementation of EUDR. Can you share with the audience on what is your thing and the findings from these visits?
Yes, thank you. As I said earlier, I think I conclude after observing what Indonesia and Malaysia have been doing, as well as also CIPOCSI Secretariat visited some member state under EU just last year, last October, as well as also this year, about a month ago. And the conclusion is, I think there are lack of preparation from the EU side, because we have met the competent authority, and not all member states have appointed the competent authority. We also visited last October to the authority of Port Rotterdam, in which this port is the biggest hub for European market. And at the time, they are not also really sure what kind of tools and preparation is undertaking with regard to the EUDR. So I'm just afraid because of lack of information, and so far because there is no implementing guidance issued by the European Commission at the capital from Brussels to the member state level. So each of the competent authority is only relying on the information based on the frequent asked question that has been compiled by the European Commission. There is no implementing guidelines to be followed when the EUDR will be implemented. And considering the timeline, as I said earlier, which is the establishment of the European Commission is just in October, November, while when the producing country going to ship the cargo from Malaysia, from Indonesia to Europe, then the flight need to be made about 6 weeks before, meaning that if the end of December will be the implementation of EUDR, meaning it's about mid of November, everything should be clear when the importer in Europe going to import some CPO from Indonesia, from Malaysia. So I think given this lack of clarity, lack of information, while also the technical preparation is not really clear, I think I a bit pessimistic that by the time we can handle everything. But we, of course, look forward to have the third task force meeting that's going to be held in September. So I think this meeting would be, I think, very important meeting, hearing from the EU side what kind of the latest development. And also we learned that the chairman, the co-chair from European Commission has been also replaced by the new one. So I don't know whether by the time we are having the task force meeting, the new co-chair will be also fully aware on the like a process that we have gone through under the task force. But my suggestion, what the government of Indonesia and Malaysia has been doing, just we are following all the preparation. So because as I said, the challenges faced by the producing country is not only UDR, it's beyond that, because there will be some more new further regulation. So by the time the producing country is ready with the MSPO, Indonesia ready with national dashboard. So whenever it is a new regulation is in place, because the new parliament in EU also will be more trade protectionism. So there will be another trade restriction, but not related directly with the climate change issue, but it could be some other trade issue that may affecting the palm oil industry. But with the, I think, market diversification, the domestic consumption, and also followed by the replanting program that just mentioned by Ibu Musdalifah, we need to increase, and also the suggestion made by some speakers, we need to increase the supply by improving the productivity of the smallholders that can contribute it significantly to our domestic production. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Rizal. Pak Rizal has been very diplomatic with his answer because of the latest development in EU with the new election. Inshallah, there is a likelihood that our wish for an extension may come true, right? So we hope so. We hope so. So with that, we open questions from the floor. Please state your name, organization, and be brief on the question and to whom you're addressing the question. Can I have the first question? Yes. Pak Fadil, dipersilakan.
Langsung aja sini. Yeah, thank you very much, Pak Datuk. My question goes to Bu Mus and Pak Rizal. I think that with the result of the EU election just recently, maybe yesterday, right? There will be some change in the policy if the center-right coalition won the election. So with that, do you think that we have to pressure more on EU on the implementation of the UDR? And then I think with the new coalition that are going to form in the parliament, maybe they can, they will more accepted than the old parliament or commission, right? Because the previous one is a center left, right? So more greener, things like that. So that's one question. Another question is that the national dashboard, do you think the national dashboard will be ready in the January or June 2025? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Fadil. I think the first question is to Pak Rizal and the second question is to Ibu Mus.
Yes, thank you, Dato. Terima kasih, Pak Fadil. I think all effort that has been done so far, in particular in promoting the positive campaign on the palm oil, should be continued, regardless the outcome of the EU parliaments, which is, I think, still beginning, Pak Fadil. As I mentioned, according to the timeline, the finalization of the parliament will be in July. So now it's just only counting, but for who is the member of parliament will be appointed is going to be officiated in July. And then the election of the president, European Commission will be in September. So after that will be the appointment of the commissioner sometimes in October and November. So I think given the schedule, the political direction will be also depend on the coalition that you mentioned, because coalition center and right wings will be built, and what kind of priority will be discussed, of course, but for certain, the immigration issue will be also very come to the corner, and also there is a wish strengthening the member state compared to the current one, because the current one, the Brussels, the capital is so powerful. So many of the member states complain and they wanted to have more power and strengthen. So this is like similar to the development in any countries, like in Indonesia in the past. It is too much power to the central government, and the region wanted to have more power. But now I think seems that it is over decentralized. Everything need to be managed by the local government, and very view rest to this power of central government. So this kind of political situation will be discussed, of course, with the build coalition, and so that's why my suggestion, Pak Fadil, regardless what kind of priority will be taken by the upcoming commissioner, my suggestion, what we have been doing so far, together with the CPOPC, with GAPKI, with MPOC, and also many other countries, just continuing our positive campaign, because I think this is still very, very challenging. We need to balance the information globally about the perception of the palm oil. So CPOPC Secretariat will continuing our plan for the rest of this year, unless there will be a new direction from some leaders and also from the ministers, CPOPC leaders. And let us work together in continuing these works. And in particular, as I said, we are also not only addressing the EU countries, but also UK, India, China, Pakistan, and US. So I think those are the important market for palm oil, in addition to European market. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ibu Mus.
Pak Fadil, we are the biggest country of palm oil producer. So in terms for the are we ready national dashboard in the 1st January 2025? We have to assurance them that we have this national dashboard as a tools to guarantee that all our product who will trade to the global market already validated for the geolocation and cutoff date and others requirement which already in EUDR. In terms of this, we already cooperate with first priority within in this dashboard, national dashboard, is all the product who already have the market in the global, in the EU especially. We asking them to do piloting to all in this pilot project in this national dashboard. Start with the 13 parties to I don't know, that is from industry, smallholders, cooperasi already joined with us to do piloting to export to their consumer. So I hope through this piloting, we hope that we can improve time by time intensively to make this our platform national dashboard can work properly for to as a tools to trade our product from Indonesia to go to the global. So Pak Fadil, we have to assure we have experience on SPLK, collective VPA, as a example for us to replicate this system, and it's already done. Actually, SPLK already do all the traceability trade to the global market, to the especially to the EU, and then it's work. So we have already SPLK, so we replicate in national dashboard. It's more maybe more, we enhance with all commodity and justify just with the criteria of all our other product, like coffee has the different criteria with the what to call with rubber, with cocoa, and also especially for the palm oil. So all this system we accommodate in national dashboard. We don't change any others because they have already the system how they can trace all their product to go from the farm to go to the market. And also for the industry, we already have from the system in the Ministry of Industry product. So we will link with the system in Ministry of Industry for the industry product. So I hope that it will in 1st January, maybe it's not proper yet, but we asking all our consumer to come to us, to try our system and we improve together. We need to improve together. We need to working together because they are not until now they're not working yet. They don't know what to do yet because they say on October they will release the guidelines and anything. So we have to assurance them that we are ready. The problem only because we can't yet working with them with the already clear regulation, clear guidelines of the competent authority in the European market. That is the only thing. So I hope in the 1st January we can work. We will improve together with all stakeholders. This is for our economy, for our we need to keep the economy from our country, the economy of our smallholders, especially because they are the people who living in or around the forest. They say they will save the forest. If you will save the forest, we need to keep safe all the smallholders plantation around the forest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bomas. Okay. There was a long question with the long answers. So maybe I got 1 or 2 questions left. Next, yeah. Ada banyak nih. Nanti yang itu dulu. Dari Sekjen Nash ya. Ya silakan.
I'm
Unless you all want to finish at 5,
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
ask a lot more questions.
Amran from Nash. I just got opinion, just a suggestion only. I do a little study, and it ended up with a conclusion that EU will not stop doing their activity of disturbing us, and at the end of the day, we also cannot stop doing our job just to confront with them. Okay, I think our business, oil palm business, is very beautiful business. So I suggest that we should go back and do homework with a beautiful homework and a beautiful approach. I think this need some, maybe an in-depth study. What are the things that we can expect to come out again from EU? Last time they said, oh, it's because we do deforestation, we habitat orangutan, we disturb them, and then come to a forced level. Now deforestation, and again, they will keep on pursuing a lot of issues so that it makes us difficult. I think one of my suggestion that since we have, agreement today, we are going to, all the affiliate countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, Honduras, Papua, we sit together, do a little bit homework, beautiful approach to confront them. So, my last word, Nash volunteer to join in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your suggestion, Encik Amran. Okay, we got one more question. Tadi dari... Okay, silakan.
Terima kasih. Pertanyaan saya akan saya tujukan kepada Pak Muhammad Sahri. Ya, COMPOC, Pak ya.
No, MSPO.
RSPO.
MSPO.
Ya, tadi kalau saya nggak salah dengar ya bahwa sertifikasi RSPO ini kan cukup mahal. Tetapi smallholder Malaysia itu sudah mencapai angka 80% tadi, Pak ya.
85.
85%, ya. Selain subsidi yang dilakukan oleh negara Malaysia, apa-apa saja ya sehingga angka 85% ini sangat luar biasa kalau dibandingkan dengan Indonesia. Terima kasih.
Silakan, Cik Syarif.
Okay.
What is the secret?
Saya sudah terangkan pada mulanya MSPO dilaksanakan dia bersifat voluntarily, tetapi apabila kerajaan mengambil pendekatan mewajibkan semua proses dalam peladangan hingga ke hiliran atau ke huluan, dia menjadi wajib. Apabila dia menjadi wajib, dia mendapatkan kesemua peserta atau proses owner itu harus disertifikasikan. Okey. Apabila dia harus disertifikasikan, kita ada almost 22 certification body ya yang akan mengadakan audit kepada proses tersebut ya. Kos yang dikenakan ditanggung oleh pihak kerajaan sebagai salah satu syarat dia ianya wajib. Jika dia tidak menjadi compulsory atau menjadi wajib, potensi untuk mendapat 85% itu mungkin kurang. Ya, I think in this case kita bukan saya mau membezakan ISPO, ya, tapi is proven, ya, melainkan government take the initiative to make it compulsory. When the government take the initiative to make compulsory, everybody in the process will be certified. Ya, sebab tu di Malaysia kita boleh mendapat proses di mana certification kita melebihi 90%. Okey, satu. Nombor dua, kita menggunakan sistem kita MSPO Trace, ya, di mana kita MSPO Trace dikendalikan, dimonitor oleh MSPO itself. Jadi kita boleh tahu setiap proses di mana ladang atau kilang mempunyai masalah atau cuba melengahkan dalam proses certification tersebut. Jadi MSPO itself adalah sebagai satu body untuk melihat proses itu berjalan dengan lancar. Jadi dengan dua proses tersebut, I think that's the reason why kenapa kita boleh dapat more than 90%.
Okay, thank you. Okay, last question. Pak Napoleon. Ini dari Sarawak. Dayak All Public Station.
All right. Good afternoon to all panelists. I'm Napoleon. Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Napoleon from Sarawak, Malaysia. Actually, I have quite a lengthy question, but I try to make it short.
Please make it one or two and make it short.
Make it short.
We can answer you after this.
But I need to elaborate a little bit, yeah. Please allow me. Just give me 1-2 minutes. As we have heard 9 papers were presented regarding the smallholder, watchholder should do, to be more sustainable. And also there are some solutions have been discussed. But I would like to know what are the commitment from the epoxy with regards to the smallholders challenges faced by smallholders. As if we want to move forward, definitely we need to know, to identify their challenges. I just want to highlight there are few challenges that face in general by the smallholders. Number one is, of course, we have no control over the market volatility and price fluctuation. Secondly, we have poor access to the resources and the technologies. Thirdly, of course, it will involve quite substantial costs of compliance to EUDR. And like what we had today is good to have a better understanding of the EUDR requirement. We also have problems with human resource capacity building. And the worst part is the third party certification, for example, ISPO, RSPO, MSPO, and there are many other sustainability certification in the world. But what will be our long-term plan on this? And the worst part, as mentioned earlier on, frequent changes in the buyer requirements and market dynamic. And lastly, if there is any premium price for smallholder, or rather we might be excluded out from the entire supply chain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe Pak Rizal, you would like to answer that question. I think that's the last question before we close the day.
Thank you. I think you help us in wrapping up as well as also defining the key takeaways. And the Secretariat, of course, plan to compile as all the speakers providing the recommendations, the problems, and so on. So we compile into the proceeding, which is the collection of the papers, as well as also compiling all the recommendations. And all recommendations cannot be solely done by the Secretariat CPOPC, because some of the recommendation need to be goes to the government, to the respective government. That's the area of the authority in the respective countries. And also convey to the relevant association of the palm oil in the industry. Here we have the representative from GAPKI and also some other association, palm oil association in Indonesia, in Malaysia. You have also representative from MPO, BMPC. So let us be on the loop that today we have identified many challenges faced by the smallholders, and also some recommendations provided by the excellent speakers based on their knowledge, based on their experience. So I think by putting all together, as well as also sending and channeling to the respective authorities with the hope that they can follow it up as necessary under their authority. Yeah, so I think that's the plan. And secondly, I think as also hearing from some of the representative from the smallholders association before, that building the network, the alliance will be also another important milestone. So this alliance can serve as the networking mechanism, exchanging for the many development, as well as, of course, the role of Secretariat can be facilitating the establishment of this alliance or networkings by creating more members. I believe many more countries are also joining through online, not only represented by Indonesia, Malaysia, Honduras, and Papua New Guinea, but I think I show on the list many more from Nigeria, from Colombia, from Ghana are joining, and many more others, the palm oil producing country. So I think those are the things that we can still benefiting from having this workshop. And also, I think the capacity building that you mentioned, that also becoming the challenges and also the possible collaboration between Council, CPOPC with the Palm Oil Association, because this capacity building can be like collaboration between the industry, like Sam Derby from Malaysia, for example, like Sinarmas or many other companies can organize this capacity building, which is, I believe, in the past this has been also done, and we will like also to proceed this with the participation for the smallholders. So it's depend on the topic, but today's menu actually is also like at the glance what the industry has been also providing. For example, mechanization. Sam Derby just presented to us is I think the example that the mechanization and the introduction of an artificial intelligence is already in place in the industry. And with regard to some challenges that we discussed, Pak Jono mentioned we should be promoting the second and the third generation of the farmers because they are not really attracting anymore to be engaged, continuing their parents, and also because of like less challenging and so on. But I think with the introduction, with the technology, with the mechanization, artificial intelligence, some of the works, not all, some of the works can be done by the millennials. So the millennials, the workers, can operate drone. So not going to the field directly, but they are still can monitor and still operating like a drone, and also operating the situation room or in front of the computers and so on. So technology now is also involved in the production. Yeah, so it's not necessarily coming all to the field, but some can be in the room and works, yeah, using this sophisticated technology. So I think with the sustainability standard, the Secretariat of CPOPC now is upgrading so-called global framework principle for the sustainable palm oil that meet the latest standard, Ibu Musdalifah, and also friends and colleagues. This GFP SPO is adjusting with the current development under the EUDR, as well as also with the MSPO 2.0 Indonesia, also some upgrade under the ISPO regulation. We have revised this general framework principle for the sustainable palm oil that developed by the CPOPC that can be shared with the other palm oil producing countries, Pak Kepson. So if you're interested this, we can provide you after finish our upgraded works, which is I think hopefully not too far from now, as well as also can be used as the template for other commodity, Ibu Mus, because some of the outcome during the meeting with the commodity also under the UDR, not all the commodity has developed this kind of sustainability standard. I think the palm oil sector is the most stringent and the most ready, but not the case for other commodity. So I think we can share this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Rizal. With that, I think we come to a close for the panel discussion. I hope this was an interesting one with a vote of thanks to all the panelists, and thank you very much. My closing remark will be a short one because Pak Rizal just now has basically wrapped up the session. But I would like to first take an opportunity to thank all of you for making time to be here at this event today. I hope you have found this event to be a fruitful one, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the panelists, all the speakers who have made time to be with here and to present for you. I think this smallholder workshop is a very important component of SIPOCSI activities, and we have carried out this 3 times during our tenure. And since this is our last tenure in SIPOCSI for the board, I am not sure about the next smallholder workshop. But if you feel that this smallholder workshop is beneficial and useful, then we will recommend to the next board members to continue with it. What do you think? You want it some more? So I would like to also take this opportunity to thank the organizing committee headed by Dr. Wichak, who has worked tirelessly to make this event successful to accommodate all your requests. So I would like to end up my presentation with 2 pantuns. The first pantun is jari telunjuk untuk menunduk. Cincin kawin di jari manis. Kulihat kalian sudah mengantuk. Tenang saja, acaranya sudah habis. One last one. Selesai meriah majlis acara, perkara baik jadi pedoman. Andai Anda terlanjur bicara, salah silap kami harap dimaafkan. Terima kasih.